Totally. Yeah. I mean, one of the quotes like I really do truly live by is like, when I'm 90 and I'm on my deathbed, like what's gonna, be the coolest story, right?
Mm,
I don't want that story to be I sat on my phone for 80% of my life and, kind of just brain rotted away. I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in this life. And
yeah.
that's really that intuition and like what drives me is like I want to have zero regrets when I'm on my deathbed and I want to be able to tell a really cool story.
Welcome to the Kaizen Blueprint podcast, where we explore topics for continuous personal growth and improvement.
Ethan, how's it going, brother? Welcome to the show.
Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, first things first, we know you from your social media feed as Captain Gregerson.
Yeah,
I love
that
your,
would be me.
there you go. I love your content that you're putting out there, especially in the aviation industry, right? It's
Hmm.
not a lot to talk about when it comes to aviation. People, after college, well, not college, after high school, they tend to go to universities, go to college, but you took kind of a different pathway. And tell us more about why aviations and why did you want to get into that industry?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, really for me, aviation has just been a passion of mine for a long time. So, when I was a kid, I was always excited for the flight over the vacation. That's kind of what I tell people. So, I mean, it was just something kind of from day one that I wanted to go and do. So that was kind of where it started. And I realized that midway through high school, like, college might not be the path for me, especially as the aviation industry was changing pretty rapidly, where college degrees weren't seen as very useful or necessary anymore. I kind of made that call on my own and said, hey, just jump straight into what I'm passionate about, make an investment in myself right out of high school. And that's exactly what I did. I went right to flight school right out of high school.
So what kind of triggered that? What do you see the biggest change in the aviation industry?
So really, it's the pilot shortage. So I'm very fortunate to have gotten in it at the right time. It hasn't always been this way, but really, like a lot of retirees have kind of been jumping the industry because aviation is one of the industries that has a mandatory retirement age. Due to it being such an important job, right? So all pilots are required to retire at 65 years old. So there's happened to be a lot of retirements that were happening, between now and 2030. So really there's a pretty massive pilot shortage. That's kind of why they changed the requirements. I mean, it used to be a 4-year degree was just standard in order to go and be a pilot at a mainline carrier like Delta or United or American, right? But that's recently changed because they're just like, yeah, we just need pilots, man. Like we don't have time to sit here and look through degrees and stuff. Like we just need to hire people to fly our planes.
So back then, was it required to have a 4-year degree in order to become a pilot? And does it
Yeah, I
have to
mean,
be related to the industry?
doesn't have to be related to the industry, but it was I would say it was a thing from, I mean, really the early 2000s to as recent as about 2020 is kind of when they started saying, hey, we don't need degrees anymore. We just need our guys to to be qualified to fly planes. And it was never like a requirement. Like it wasn't like a federal requirement that hey they need a 4-year degree. But I'm just American, Delta, United, all the mainline carriers. It was just a standard for them. It was like yeah, you guys need to have a 4 year degree in any field just to show hey I can get through this and like, have a good work ethic, right?
Yeah, yeah. So what's the process like from, I guess you start off with being a private pilot license, right? That's how you
Hmm.
start off. But how do I go from that into, let's say I'm flying these commercial airlines with,
Jets, yeah.
a bunch of people?
Yeah, so it's kind of a complicated process, but I'll try to break it down as simply as I can. So, airline pilot's obviously the end goal for most people, and you really start flying these like small little propeller planes. So you might see them kind of flying overhead, single engine propellers. You start there and you earn what's called your private pilot's license. And as I go forward, I'm going to talk through each license. Each license just kind of unlocks a different thing, like a
Sure.
different privilege for you, right? So the first one's your private pilot's license. All your private pilot's license like lets you do is it lets you fly good weather conditions with passengers, so you can carry passengers for the first time. That's kind of the privilege that it unlocks for you. The next one you get is called your instrument rating. That's what lets you fly into the clouds, so you can fly
Mhm.
without reference to outside, like visuals. Because I mean, in the clouds you can't see anything, right? You're just
Right.
relying on your instruments. The third one you'll get is usually your commercial pilot certificate. That's what lets you get paid to fly. That doesn't mean you can fly jets. Like we'll get to that, but it just means, hey, like I can be hired as a pilot and be paid to fly because as a private pilot you can't.
Mm.
And then like a lot of the other stuff is just add-ons. So you can get your commercial multi-engine certificate. That's what lets you fly planes with multiple engines, so 2 to 4 engines. Then you can get your instructor certificates, which a lot of people go down that route. And all instructing lets you do is it lets you teach people how to fly and sign them off to go and get their certificates. Now, the reason people get their instructor certificates is because in order to go fly for the airlines, the minimum requirement to go fly for the airlines and get your last certificate, which is called your ATP, your Airline Transport Pilot Certificate, you need 1,500 hours of flight time. A lot of people
Wow.
get their commercial pilot certificate just after 250 hours. So there's a lot of time in between that 250 hours to that 1,500 hours that they need to fill in order to qualify to go fly the big jets. So a lot of people choose to go be instructors, to kind of fill that gap, if that makes sense.
So when becoming an instructor, you fly with other people, and that is considered the sort of called the hours.
Yeah. So I mean, like flight time is when the engine starts spinning to when it stops. So
Mm.
that's how we would log our hours. Yeah. So I mean, really, the flight instructor's job is to take people back through those first licenses that we talked about, right? So the private pilot certificate, the instrument rating, and the commercial pilot certificate. So I would take on students who have never flown a plane before, and I'd be their instructor, right? I was the guy sitting
Mm.
in the right seat, teaching them how to fly planes for the first time, teaching them the fundamentals of flight, and then eventually build them up in order to go get those certificates. Yeah, and it was a time building thing. So I was logging those hours too, and just kind of working my way up to the 1,500.
Got it. Is that where you are today? Like you're trying to
Yeah,
reach that 1500 mark?
yeah, still in the process. I am taking it a little bit slower to kind of focus on some finance goals I have and some real estate goals that I have, which I'm sure we'll touch on here in a bit. Yeah, I'm just trying not to rush through the process. Like a lot of people are in the rush to get airlines. I've already interviewed with United, and I'm in their pilot
Nice.
pathway program. So I've already interviewed with them. I have a guaranteed job with them once I reach that, like requirement. Like they have a certain hour requirement for me to reach. So I'm not too worried about that there. So yeah, I'm just trying to take my time, have fun, enjoy where I'm at, not rush through and get rid of that passion. Because like the reason I got into flying is because I'm passionate about it, right? So I want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm always holding on to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you're passionate about something, you could be patient and,
Hmm.
be meticulous in the things that you're doing and choosing the path that you want to go. Speaking of
Absolutely.
finances, right? I think when it comes to the airlines industry or just becoming a pilot, one thing that people look at is how much does it cost to become that? Most universities, they have tuitions, they have scholarships, they have, financial aid that allow students to save some money or perhaps borrow some money to fulfill whatever it is that they want to do, whether that's majors in finance or whatever it is that they want to do. Now, speaking about airlines, about being a pilot, being what ATP, right? That's the end goal
Yeah.
here in order for you to fly with the bigger airlines here. What are the costs associated with that, and how does people like you mentioned the older folks are leaving or not leaving but retiring, and
Yeah.
now we want to push for the younger folks to go in and be in the industry and become a pilot. Is there an incentive that comes towards being a pilot or just getting these certifications in general?
I really wish there were incentives. Fortunately for the industry, there's a lot of people who just are passionate about it, who just think flying is really
Mm.
cool. So there's no financial incentives, unfortunately, that are offered to kind of, get flight school paid for. I would say that is the biggest objection to becoming a pilot is, there are substantial costs associated with it because flight schools are expensive. Aircraft are expensive. Running them, maintenance is really expensive, right? So like there's a lot of costs. It's not just people being greedy.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I would say it can cost anywhere from fifty to $100,000 up front to get all those certifications. And then I mean, like the goal is obviously like pilots get paid well for a reason. It's because they did make a large upfront investment, and
Right.
you'll make that back tenfold if you have a long enough career. But yeah, I mean there are pretty substantial costs up front. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
something I'll lie about.
And you said there's no scholarships involved with these type of.
Yeah, there are some like there are some nonprofit organizations that do offer partial and full scholarships for certain people, but they are really hard to get. Like it's not the college industry, right, where there's like a lot of organizations
Mm,
involved, lots of things you can write to. Like really, there's only a handful of organizations that even offer partial scholarships, right? So I
got it.
wasn't able to get one, but that's okay. I was able to take a traditional student loan out to pay for it, which
Yep,
I see as an upfront investment in myself and my career, which I think is okay.
got it. Speaking about, like, you mentioned you were in the United pilot path, right?
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
yeah, yeah. So a lot of the airlines are doing something similar. They'll call it like a pilot pathway or like a cadet program, something like that, where essentially you're guaranteed a job.
Mm,
Once you reach those requirements, so you kind of have to work your way through their path. But essentially, you interview up front with them so that they can see, hey, like this is a good candidate. We want this person to work for us. And really, it's a matter of just kind of checking the boxes as far as like the legal requirements they have, right? To be in charge of flying a big jet because it's a big responsibility, right? So I'm part of the United one. That was my airline of choice. They have a program called United Aviate where I went and interviewed with them. They offered me a conditional job offer once I meet those requirements, like I said. But I mean, American has one, Delta has one. It's called the Delta Propel program.
oh wow.
Almost all the airlines have some sort of cadet program, and some actually will do something like tuition reimbursement. So I know SkyWest, that they're kind of a regional airline, so it's not like a mainline carrier, but they are contracted with a lot of them. They'll reimburse up to $17,500 of your tuition to
Wow.
your flight school over time, which is cool. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can go, which is cool in general with the industry, right? There's a lot of different ways you can shoot off depending on what your goals are. So
Yeah. And is this similar to ROTC, where in the military, right, you have these activities, whether in high school or college, these ROTC are basically set you up to become in the military. Is that what these are, like the pathways just to get you? But is there a requirement that you have to work there for a few years
so
afterwards?
some of them have certain requirements. So, like for example, United, you can't interview until you have your private. So you need to have at least have your private first. Some of them will have certain contractual requirements. I know certain cadet programs will say, hey, you need to work here for at least 5 years. And then you can go to a different airline if you don't want to. And that's kind of their way of saying, hey, we're investing in you up front, and we just want to make sure that gets returned to us, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And is there certain kind of pros and cons to joining each airlines? Is there one is better than the other? Are you able to
Yeah, I mean,
disclose
yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, I would just say it's same thing with any company. There's pros and cons working for any organization.
Mm,
So I mean, every airline's run a little bit differently. I kind of made my decision on what information was available. I talked to a lot of pilots working for different airlines. It was like, hey, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? Reason I chose United, I think they fly to some really cool destinations. They have a lot of cool aircraft on order, some of which I would really like to fly. And they run a solid business. Obviously, United has been around forever. I've had a good
right.
experience flying on them. So yeah, I mean, you just kind of got to make the best decision you can. It's like every organization is going to have pros and cons. So,
Got
but
it. This is more of a curiosity question here, right? So
sure,
I'm from Indonesia, and that is on a completely opposite end of the world to where we are in the United States. And some
sure,
of these flights can be a longer flights, maybe 10 plus hours, right? This
yeah.
is a question of curiosity here. How do you guys stay awake? Or if so, like, do you guys take turns with each other?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So actually, on long haul flights like that, there's actually usually like four or five pilots on board, and yeah,
Oh
we do
wow.
take turns flying. So there are different roles. So we usually have two captains, two first officers, and then like what's called an IRO, which is like a rest officer, and then yeah, like we'll do kind of like 8 hour turns, and then we'll go into a crew rest area. A lot of people don't know this is a thing, but on those bigger jets, there are literally rooms above where the passenger seating areas are, bunk bed looking things, where they're crew rest areas. and there's mandatory rest requirements that pilots need to go and essentially take a nap to,
Wow.
make sure we're operating the flight safely. So, I mean, we essentially do take turns and kind of shifts, and then we'll have crew rest times on the flight as well. It's funny because people will say like being a pilot is one of the only jobs you can get paid to sleep because I mean, essentially you are sleeping on the plane and still getting paid for it.
Got it. Now, when it comes to being a pilot, right, we always see
Yeah.
two pilots in an airline. Now, you mentioned one of them is first officer and the other one is a what?
Well, yeah. So we have a captain, a first officer, and then an IRO, like an international relief officer, and that's kind of just another guy to kind of like they'll usually rest up front and come and take over. It's just a redundancy thing. I mean, there's a reason aviation is so safe, just because we have a lot of redundancy. We work really hard to make sure every flight is operated safely. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And how does learning about all this, about aviation, kind of help your life, your personal life? Is there certain strategies or processes or some sort of habits that you realize that's being from either, checking a list or fixing a plane that translate into your everyday life now?
I would say absolutely checklists. I
Mm,
use checklists in every part of my life because, I mean, like that was something I learned up front. Like checklist usage is the most important thing. You could be flying the same aircraft for 50 years. I'm
yeah,
serious, like 50 years, and they still fill out their checklist every time. Because even though they have it committed to memory, it's just a redundancy thing. It's just to make sure, hey, everything gets done and it gets done correctly. And we don't check
got
it
it.
off until it gets done, right? So I'll
Yeah,
do the same thing in my life. When it comes to leaving for work in the morning, I have a work morning checklist just to make sure I have everything right.
got it.
And it makes sure I never forget anything, and that I'm well prepared for everything, right? So that's been a really key thing, and I would suggest it for anyone. I mean, checklists are really handy. So
There you
yeah,
go. Awesome. And let's switch gears here, right?
sure.
You have this not content creation. That's the next subject actually. This aviation thing, and you kind of translate that into what you're doing like in social media. You have a TikTok, you have an Instagram, you have a Discord community here with relating to aviation. What are you trying to get out of that? And do you think that that will grow the interest of the younger crowd into aviation space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it already has, and that was really one of the reasons I got into it. I think when I was just starting Captain Gregerson, really just had an honest conversation with myself. I was like, I really enjoy talking about aviation, and I also thought it'd be really cool to lay out like a full, starting from absolutely nothing, like no flying experience ever, to going and being a mainline captain. That's why it's called Captain Gregerson.
Mm,
Uh, and just be able to follow that journey, because like I personally really like to watch people's journeys and hear about like these success stories, people kind of starting from zero and going through and becoming an expert at a craft. And I thought it'd be really cool to kind of do that for myself. So that was the goal of Captain Gregerson, was to kind of follow my journey, showcase my journey to others, and hopefully inspire the younger generation to get into a cool industry, which it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I think watching people who are already at the peak of their success at their pinnacle, it's like, okay, that's great. It can be
Yeah,
intimidating too. But then if you watch someone like on top of my head, right? Like Lewis Hamilton, where he kind of started from ground zero in the F1 community compared to the
right.
other drivers where they kind of had a boost of whether that's family money or sponsorship or just a generation of fathers and grandfathers who's been in the industry. Whereas Lewis Hamilton, they kind of start off from ground zero, like he didn't have that much resources. But to go back to your point, seeing someone like you, where you're starting out, wherever you are, you start out with finance videos, you start educating yourself about finances, and you know that in the aviation industry, it gets really hard to fund that
Yeah,
education piece because there's so much different variables. And I think you're recording yourself and documenting the things that you're doing can benefit other people who are in similar shoes, which majority of people are, right? Majority of people of your age, you're 19, is that correct?
I
Yeah.
just turned 20. Yeah, just turned 20.
Oh, you just turned 20. Well, happy
Yeah.
belated birthday. But
Thanks.
but as a 20-year-old, most 20-year-olds don't really have, 50 to $100,000 just sitting in their bank account. And
Totally.
seeing someone like you that you're striving to save money in order to fuel your passion that you know is going to be a great investments down the line is truly an inspirational thing.
Yeah, totally. No, I really couldn't agree more. And that was kind of the whole thing. To your point, I saw that no one else was kind of doing that, and like showcasing their journey. And yeah, it is intimidating. Like you do see a captain at a mainline and they're posting videos. It's like great, but they don't see the 12 to 15 years that they worked to get to that point, right? So like that was my thing with Captain Gregerson. I want to show people like, yeah, this is where I'll be someday, and that'll
Mm.
be where the content goes. But then they can also look back and see like, this is where I started, man. Like it was humble beginnings, right? So yeah.
So what's the next step for you in this content creation?
So I'm sure we'll kind of get to where I'm at now later on, but I mean, I have taken a step back from aviation temporarily just to get finances together. Unfortunately, instructors don't get paid quite as well as one would think. I live in a city that's pretty high cost of living, so
Sure.
I decided, hey, I'm just gonna put it on pause for now. I still fly pretty regularly, and to keep up with it. But yeah, like I wanted to kind of focus on doing something else, increasing my income, getting my finances together, and then coming back to it when it makes more sense. That way, I just don't go into like an exorbitant amount of debt, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And speaking about finances, let's talk about your couch flipping business. Couch flipping is something most people might have seen online, like, oh, that's really cool, but they might not understand the nuance of it. However, you have a course dedicating into couch flipping, which is Couch Flipping Academy LLC that you can find online. And can you tell us a little bit about the process of what couch flipping is and just from point A to point B of getting a couch or maybe finding a couch into selling a couch down the line and make a profit?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I've been doing couch flipping almost 5 years now. I've been doing it since 2019. So I've been doing it longer than I've been doing the aviation thing. But yeah, it's a great side hustle. Basically, you're finding couches on the used market, like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, OfferUp, even on the side of the road. I picked up couches on the side of the road that are in decent shape, and you kind of clean them up and then stage them to sell for a much higher price. And then part of what I do is I offer delivery on them, right? And that's a big value proposition because you're just offering huge convenience to your eventual buyer, right? By saying, hey, like I'm going to take the most inconvenient part of buying a furniture item and take care of it for you, right? Which is delivering. So yeah, I mean, like the process is find a couch, undervalued, which is pretty easy to do because a lot of these people are just kind of moving, they're getting their stuff out. They don't care. I mean, like, have you ever gone to a garage sale? They're not trying to haggle on price, like trying to be like, oh, I want MSRP for this. No, I mean, you can usually
Yeah.
find a good deal pretty easily. And that, yeah, it's cleaning that couch up, staging it, taking great pictures of it, and then offering delivery on it. And I mean, I would say on average we're clearing $300 to $400 in profit per couch we
Wow.
flip. And it's really not a huge investment in time. It's usually between 2, 3, 4 hours all in from pickup, cleaning, and delivery. So it's like when you really break it down, you're making up to $100 plus an hour. So it's a really lucrative and fun side hustle that you can do on your own time.
So when it comes to finding these couches, you mentioned three different websites there, but how do you pick them up? Is it required for you to get a U-Haul truck or someone's pickup truck? Like how does that work with couches? And how do you know a certain type of couch is going to be profitable?
Yeah. So I would say those are probably some of the biggest mistakes people who are trying to get into the hustle make. Is they just don't know what couches are good deals, what's good to pick up, right? So what I tell people a lot is like you just have to find a couch that you would be comfortable putting in your own house, right? Something that's got mass desire. So I mean, I don't know about you, Aldo, but put like a yellow couch in my house wouldn't look good, right? I mean, it's not a desirable color, right? So I look for like neutral colors, like gray, white, black, like just neutral colors, kind of like that, and then I'll yeah, go and pick them up with a pickup truck. I own my own pickup truck. When I started, I used a friend's pickup truck, and we kind of did it together and split the money. And then I realized I was like, this is a great hustle, so I went and bought my own. So yeah, and then yeah, I mean, I already explained the rest of the process, but yeah, I mean, really, it's just finding couches that have a good desire that aren't in too bad of shape because there are certain problems that you can't fix, right? Like can't fix bed bugs. can't fix, I mean, like super crazy stains or big tears and stuff. So I look for some that have some pretty gentle use that just could use a light cleaning that kind of boost that hourly rate as well. Because I'm not spending a crazy amount of time investing in cleaning this thing. Usually it's under an hour, usually just giving it a vacuum, disinfecting it really well, and usually steam cleaning it. So yeah, but that's kind of the process.
So, and what about negotiating the price, especially from you buying a couch, right? You're negotiating with the seller. Is there specific tips that you can have that you do with sellers to lower down the price?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like the biggest thing I do is there's a lot of convenience in working with me because I do what I say I'm going to do and I'm just going to get it done. A lot of people
Hmm.
go on Facebook Marketplace. It's kind of a joke or a meme at this point. Like, people will say, "Oh, is this still available?" And then you as the seller, you'll be like, "Yeah, it's still available," and then they'll just never talk to you again, right? So it's
Yep,
like,
yep.
yeah, like it could be, inconvenient in that sense. Whereas like I'm very responsive and I'll say, "Hey, I will come pick this up. I can't pay the full price. I can give you this much, but like I'm guaranteed, like I will be here in 30 minutes and I'll bring a buddy so you don't even have to help me with it, right?" And that tends to work a lot. Uh, I also will kind of just like sometimes it's helpful to show them, hey, uh, like comparable couches that I just picked up. I paid
Yeah.
this amount for. Like, I know you think it's worth this, but it's not. Like, this is what I'll pay. And honestly, like what happens a lot of times is I'll get offers rejected up front. Like, like I'll offer $150 on a $300 couch, right? And they'll say, hey, no, and then they'll come back a week later and say, okay, I'll take your $150 offer because I couldn't sell it for that, right? So yeah, so a lot of it is just offering your convenience up front and just doing what you say you're going to do, and that goes a long way.
Got it. One thing that people talk about when it comes to flipping couches is where do I store these couches? If I'm
Yeah,
buying, five, even 10 couches, right? These are
right.
a lot of
They're big.
space
They're
that
big.
needs
Yeah.
exactly. So where do you store the couches, and where do you recommend people just starting out to store the products?
Yeah, so really, I mean, everyone's personal situation is a little bit different. For me, uh, because I've been running this business for so long, I've got a few storage units. Then I also use my garage as kind of like my hub. So like I don't even keep a car in my garage. It's filled with couches. So, but I mean, I've also been here longer and I've been doing it longer. For someone just starting out, I'd recommend just getting a little 10 by 15 storage unit. A lot of these places will do your first month for free. So like I know Life Storage has been doing a
Mm,
promotion forever where it's like, hey, do your first month free. It's great for beginner couch
yeah,
flippers. They can dip their toes in the water at a low cost and say, hey, like is this going to work in my area? Yeah, like they're really not out a ton of money. I think you have to pay like the insurance premium, which is like $15. Like that's about it. So yeah, I mean storage units are really lucrative, especially ones with power. And I mean if you got extra space in your garage too, I would recommend starting there. That's where I started. My parents' garage and
there
their
you go.
covered back porch. Yeah.
Couches.
Garage full of couches. I'm not kidding you. It is stuffed to the very top with couches, and they're just all stacked vertically,
Wow.
and cushions are everywhere. But yeah, I mean, it's you just gotta make do with what you got, right?
Yeah. So speaking of the disposition side, right? When you're selling the couches, after you purchase them, you negotiate at them, then you clean up. You mentioned like the
Yeah.
cosmetic stuff. You buy the neutral one. You know that it's an undervalued couch.
Mhm.
When it comes to selling, right? Where do you go? Where do you post? Do you post quality pictures? Tell us more about that.
I post it right back on Facebook Marketplace. I do
Wow.
90% of my business right back through, which is crazy because people don't believe me. And they're like, no, but like you bought it on Facebook Marketplace, so who's going to pay a higher price? Really, the value is in the delivery, right? Because like if you think about the pain points of like a customer purchasing, especially a furniture item, a lot of them just don't have a pickup truck. Even in Texas, where pickup trucks are super common, some people just
Mm,
don't even want to go through the hassle, right? They're like, no, I don't
yeah.
want to go and load it up, and then I got to buy straps, strap it down. What if it rains, right? Like there's just a lot of things kind of going through their head. So usually that, I mean, like obviously adding like the cosmetic and cleaning it up really well does help increase the value of the couch by I'd say about $100 every time, but the real value is just offering the delivery, right? So I can buy a couch for $150 and sell it for 650 just because I deliver it for free, right? It's included,
Mm,
and it's a full like white glove service. I'll come with a buddy, and we'll set it up in your space, and we won't leave until you love it, and you'll pay us at the very end once it's all set up and you're completely happy with it. So and that's really helped out with my reputation, which is another reason I sell a lot of couches. Because I mean, at the end of the day, even though I'm selling it a lot higher than I bought it for, it's
right.
still a quarter of the price of what you go and pay at Ashley Furniture, right? And you're getting a really clean couch delivered to your door, right? So there's a lot of value there.
Yeah. So you're providing the logistic value and that the fact that you're doing it on time. Like this is
Absolutely.
a white glove delivery here in a clean couch. Obviously, I bought it for a cheaper price, but it's being delivered to you and you don't have to do anything. You're basically movers at this point, just with
Yeah, pretty
couches.
much. Pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And speaking about the end buyer here, why would they go to you? Let's say someone like me, right? I don't know anything about couches and I want to get a cheaper couch, but I see Ethan here selling this couch on Facebook Marketplace, but I don't know if I want to buy it from Facebook Marketplace because of the fact that it's a used couch and I'm afraid that what happens in the past with the couch can deter me from actually buying something that's used versus me going to a place like Wayfair, right? Where they do offer that white glove delivery and cheaper couch. And for someone like me, I don't know the difference between either or. It's just maybe for a normal buyer, we look at the aesthetic things as opposed to the durability and the many nuances that go into a couch. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
So, a lot of people, I get that a lot. Like, why are you charging this when Wayfair's charging this? And I always tell them, go buy the Wayfair couch. I promise you in 3 months, you'll come buy from me because that couch is not going to last you. I mean, Wayfair's doing their own thing. They got their own business. I got no problem with it. But I mean,
Mhm.
you can talk to anyone who owns a Wayfair couch. It's really like a quality issue, right? Um,
Mm,
like they are made really really cheap with really really cheap wood. I know people. I've literally had to junk remove their wafer couches that they bought 2 months ago because all four legs broke because they had two people sitting on it at once, right? And then
wow.
they end up buying like a used clean high quality couch from like a reputable brand, that makes a quality product over that. Really, like a lot of people just kind of know like, hey, like quality is a real thing, and I'd rather get a used couch that's been cleaned up really well.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is my reputation because I have some really really great reviews of people who are really pleased with their couches, and I outline my whole cleaning process kind of on my profile, so it kind of helps with people's peace of mind. But
Got
yeah,
it.
does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For the people who doesn't know anything about couches, whether people who want to flip couches or people who just bought their first house, moving out of their parents, or maybe they have families and they want to get a good couch. What do you recommend of people getting a better understanding of what couch to get and how do you know quality versus non-quality type couches?
I mean, this is going to be a classic, like you just get what you pay for, right? So I
Mm,
mean, Wayfair is going to be kind of bottom of the bottom because you know, they're cheap, and yeah, they deliver them, but they're all modular couches that will break very very easily. And I speak that from experience. I mean, I've junk removed and thrown away so many Wayfair couches. When you buy from higher quality name brand stores like Ashley Furniture or Living Spaces, it's going to be a lot higher quality. And then you have like the designer furniture, which is just it's like buying a Gucci purse or whatever
yeah.
or a Louis Vuitton. It's like quality is there obviously, but it's like, a little overpriced in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I would say, like for the most part, these kind of mid-tier brands like, Ashley and Living Spaces, like these are couches that will stay together for a really long as they're taken care of and you don't have like, adults jumping all over them and breaking plywood and whatever. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I would just say you definitely just get what you pay for. So yeah, I mean, people are welcome to go buy from Wayfair, but they'll end up buying from me. That's what I tell them. So
Do you recommend, in terms of the material on top, do you recommend always getting the leather or
leather is
fake
something I
leather?
wouldn't recommend actually.
Okay.
Leather doesn't hold its value very well. It tends to be a higher price point. Now, some people just really like leather because they like the way it feels, or it's colder, or it feels higher quality. That's fine. I really like, as from a couch flipping perspective, I hardly ever pick up leather couches though. Just because like
Wow.
leather is really really hard to maintain. It's really easy to scratch. So like in the process of moving couches in and out of houses, it's really easy to
Mm,
kind of like make it not look as great. So I tend to stick to fabric. I think fabric is more comfortable as well. But
Yeah.
it's a personal decision. I mean, at the end of the day, it's preference over anything.
Got it. Makes sense. All right. Now we're going to connect everything, right? We talked about
Yeah.
aviation, we talk about content creation, and we talk about the flipping couches. And you actually have a full-time job as well, trying to get your finances together and invest in many other things. How do you combine everything into one and have time management and doing so many different things at once?
Yeah. That's that's something that I still ask myself sometimes because sometimes I'm not amazing at time management. But yeah, I mean, I just I really follow my heart when it comes to passion. I really enjoy talking about all these things, and they're all big parts of my life for different reasons. And yeah, I would just say I'm more of an action person more than anything. I really
Mm.
don't find any value in just sitting kind of watching my phone and just sitting around doing nothing. So I mean, you could ask my family; they hate it sometimes. It's almost like to a fault because I just can't relax. I always have to be doing something, right? But
Yeah.
that's kind of what's let me accomplish so much and kind of finish up all these projects with so little time from an outside perspective.
Interesting. Do you do it out of, it seems like you're doing it out of love versus out of
Yeah.
fear.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, like, finances are a big part of it. Like, I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't, it was all passion. But yeah, I mean, I really do genuinely enjoy talking about this stuff. And I'm really obsessed with this whole idea of like starting something and turning it into something great. Like I really like projects and like starting
Mm,
a project and working on it over time, making it better. And then, like it's just very satisfying for me to see the end result. Like when I'm working on like a video for content creation, it starts as just an idea in my head, and to really put it through the editing software and then like turn it into fruition and post it, it's just a really satisfying thing to me. So
I agree with that. And I think, I just started become this creator thing, but I have been an entrepreneur for a few
yeah,
years now. And the fact that you starting these projects, and there's obviously an end goal here, either through a KPI or just a physical goal, right? For example, if you buy a real estate, fix them up, and then renovate it and then sell it, you have that
absolutely.
physical thing that you touch, and you know that that's the work that you have done. Indirectly or
Yes.
directly, you hire a contractor, so do it yourself, doesn't really matter. But I think in the entrepreneur space, you have, like, there's this itch, right, where you're like, I have to do something. And then when you did
Yeah.
do that something and then you become successful at it, boom, now you have some sort of evidence that backs up that, like, I can do this. And that thing just adds up more and more and more and more until gradually you start doing like some really big things that you're going to be uncomfortable with in the first place. Like, for example, for you, probably like your first airline, right? If you start, piloting a big multi-engine United airline
Yeah.
plane for the first time, you're gonna be hella nervous, and you're like, I have the, all these lives in the palm of my hands right
Yeah.
now,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that is gonna be super scary. But then eventually, that you dedicated so much hours, so much time into learning the ropes, and now
Exactly.
you're here. But now you're looking at a bigger project. It's like, what else can I do? Can I start my own airline company? I don't know, right? I think as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, we always have that itch. Like, we can't be stopped, even though our family's gonna be, you know, they have our best intentions. They, but we're definitely not gonna listen to them like
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
90%
Totally.
of the time, and we still want to strive for greatness.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, one of the quotes like I really do truly live by is like, when I'm 90 and I'm on my deathbed, like what's gonna be the coolest story, right? Uh,
Mm,
I don't want that story to be I sat on my phone for 80% of my life and kind of just brain rotted away. I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish in this life, and
yeah.
that's really that intuition and like what drives me is like I want to have zero regrets when I'm on my deathbed, and I want to be able to tell a really cool story. So
That's awesome. Our life is full of stories. So,
yeah.
Ethan, tell us briefly where you are at now, and then what's your goal in the next few years.
Yeah, so I would say, in kind of a 5-year vision, like the number one thing is just to clean up like my finances and everything. Talking about finances and stuff is really important to me too, and something I'm also passionate about. There's something that drives me. It's almost like having a collecting like thing. Like some people collect coins, some people collect like gadgets. I collect
Sure.
money. So yeah. I just like there's just something fun about that to me. So I really find a lot of drive comes down to that. So yeah, I want to get my finances together, pay off all my student loan debt. That'd be a huge breath of fresh air to me. And I'm doing it really fast right now. I'm paying $3,000 and $4,000 a month extra on top
Wow.
of my minimum payments. So it's going down quick, but that'll be really satisfying to pay off. It's another project I'm working on, right? Just kind of chipping away at it. And then, yeah, I mean, end goal is to get, back into flying and start my real estate investing journey, get my first property under my belt, start building some wealth that way. And, yeah, that's kind of the plan for now.
There you go. I think Grant Cardone's right-hand man, I think his name is Ryan Setko. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he used
I've
to,
heard the name.
yeah, he's content creation too, but he started off as the pilot for Grant Cardone, and
Oh, right.
eventually they developed a really close relationship with each other, and now he started investing with Grant Cardone, I think with Cardone Capital and things like that. So there's
Yeah,
definitely a lot of success stories, and
definitely.
obviously if you start being a private pilot or commercial pilot, whatever, um, you're definitely gonna be around those people
There's
of
going to be
that
a
type
lot
of
of
caliber that
opportunity.
provides.
Yeah,
Exactly. Awesome. Well,
totally.
Ethan, I have one final question, and then it's just the question that I ask most of my guests, actually all of my guests, and that is the purpose of this podcast, and the name of it is and it's in its name, Kaizen Blueprint. Kaizen is a Japanese term for continuous improvement. What are the things, and we talk about many different things throughout the show, what are the things that you do on a daily basis, whether that's habits, tools, systems that benefit you in your life that could benefit other people?
I think just the mentality of doing everything 1% better. I know it's just like a classic cliche thing, but it is something like I live by, man. I mean, it's just like if I can be 1% better than I was yesterday at anything. I mean, really, it could be content
Mm.
creation, it could be cleaning couches. I recently got into climbing, like rock climbing is kind of a workout for me.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I
Nice.
mean, like, yeah, if I can just come into the climbing gym, for example, and be 1% better than I came in yesterday, that's a huge win for me. So, and I think more than anything, it just comes down to having that growth mentality of saying, hey, like,
Mm.
I want to grow and continue to be a better person than I was in
Yep.
the past. That's really benefited me thus far, and I'm sure it'll continue to benefit me in the future. So.
Got it. Yeah, I think Jordan Peterson said it best, right? Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not what people are today.
Exactly. Yeah. I live by that. So
That's awesome. Ethan, where can people find more about you?
I've got a lot of different ways. Captain Gregerson is my aviation thing. If you're interested in that, you can reach me there. If you are interested in the couch flipping thing and are potentially interested in the course, it's Couch Flipping Academy. You can look it up on Google and it'll come up. Or you can go to flipcouches.com. Yeah, I mean, those are kind of the two places. And I'm also on LinkedIn if you wanted to connect and have any questions about kind of my journey.
Awesome. Well, Ethan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. How do you say, like, what in the pilot terms, like signing out, signing off? Is there
I mean,
a
really,
term for it?
they would say like frequency change approved. So like, see ya. Yeah.
That
So
sounds more
that's
complicated. All right.
yeah.
Sounds good. Well, Ethan, thank you for being on, and I will see
All
you on
right.
the next one.
All right.
All
See ya,
right.
Aldo. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome.